foot. Good foot. I got to get on the good foot. Going down to the crib and let on.
Hello everybody, I'm Natalie from Small Green Shoots. Thank you so much for coming out. What a fantastic crowd this is. Pick yourselves up for turning up. Hopefully we're not going to bore you too much. I'm going to start with letting the panel introducing themselves and yeah, Victor.
Hi everyone, my name is Victor Redwood-Sawyer. I'm a relationship manager with the Arts Council England. I work in the music department in the London region. For those that don't know, the Arts Council England is the national development agency for the arts. We fund artistic activity up and down the country across 5 art forms. So those are 6 art forms: literature, music of course, visual arts, theatre, dance, and combined arts. That's it.
My name is McEvoy. I'm the Music Projects Manager for UK Trade and Investment. We're a government-funded department that helps UK-based companies realise export opportunities and encourages investment into the UK. My primary role is to deliver assistance rather than funding, but we've got a number of schemes and services that include sort of low-level funding to help eligible companies achieve international goals.
Can everyone hear me at the back? Yeah! Okay, so my name is Sackey. I'm the CEO of an organisation called Bigga. We're a youth music and media social enterprise. We've been running for 10 years. We specialise in the empowerment and development of young people through their creativity and by developing new entrepreneurship models. So we do large-scale events for teenagers. We're number one or the largest regular promoter of under-18s urban events in London. We're just about to start doing national tours. We also have a street team of about 150 young people. We also do things at Carnival, and we've got a big new online platform called guap.com coming in the autumn, which is going to be really interesting for all you guys. And I guess I got this. Someone said I was the maverick on the group because I'm the person who gets money as opposed to gives money on the panel. So hopefully
I don't give money.
Oh, that's true. That makes money.
I'm Miriam O'Keefe and I run the Performing Arts Fund, which is a charity based at the BBC that gives funding to individuals and groups. Most relevant for tonight is that we run a scheme called the Urban Scheme, and we give about £150,000 to individual artists, producers, people working in the industry. And that's it.
Hi, can you hear me at the back? No? Back? Hello, I'm Luke. I'm from the PRS Music Foundation. I'm not from PRS for Music, I'm from the Foundation, which is a separate independent organisation. And we are the UK's largest funder of new pioneering music. And we have a number of core grant schemes that help new music from its very creation to taking it right through to the promotion of festivals and taking you to the next level in your career. And we also have a number of partnership schemes with other people such as Low Cog and things like that, where we're looking again to promote and empower new music in the UK. If it's pioneering and it's new, we want to hear. We do a lot of urban stuff and we want to do more.
Ooh. I'm just going to I know you're not going to, but I'm just going to give a warning to the panel that we don't want any jargon. So if anybody starts talking about sectors, engagement, legacy, you're just going to get a big boo, yeah? Right? If you don't understand anything that they said, just let us know at the end and we'll clear it up, because sometimes you slip into that kind of funding speak, and we're going to really try hard not to do that because it's a bit deep sometimes. Right, I'm going to ask a couple of questions in one, just so that they can all kind of vibe and answer them all in their own way, because they're from different organisations, so they're going to have different ways of dealing with funding, the process and the whole proposal and application. So how would you describe funding, Miriam? And how does it work, Pip? And what's the process, Victor? Miriam, do you want to go first?
I'll talk about funding from the BBC Performing Arts Fund point of view. We offer about £150,000 a year of funding to individuals, and that money is to help people with their careers. That's the very simple bottom line. But when we say we offer funding, we don't write cheques, you know, of £10,000, here you go and off you go. You actually enter into an agreement with us that you will use the money based on a business plan that we will write together, and that you will have mentoring and you will have support with how you use that funding. And we will have a say as well in what we think you're doing. But I suppose what we're trying to do is make a significant input into an individual's career, to say with our help and support, and it's not just the money, it's also about the contacts and the opportunities that arise during the year, that this will enable you to move on to the next stage.
In terms of where to go to get it and who to be looking to, you really need to look at identifying what your goals are and matching those to the relevant people that are going to be able to help you achieve those goals. From UKTI's perspective, we've kind of got two core elements to us. Our business support side, which is actually the helping you develop your business internationally, has low-level funding that you can apply for directly with an international trade advisor from our regional departments. It hasn't got a tricky form, it hasn't got any kind of complicated elements. It's about engaging with that advisor, telling them what your needs are, what you want to do, and then establishing that you're eligible for the relatively low-level business development support that they've got. That is very different when you're talking about a major funding organisation that has got a more complicated application process that's looking at giving you a significant amount of cash. So you have to also then think very carefully about who you're going to with that money, how you're going to help them also achieve their goals. From my side, on my project team, we're looking at delivering projects that are going to, so the larger scale events, activities. We work and we're bound within government regulations to actually tender our projects competitively. So rather than necessarily you coming to me for money, it might be me saying, I've got this project that I need a partner to work with on, and then you'd be coming to me and saying, I can deliver your goals, this is my proposal, and me saying, yeah, you're my partner. So it varies very, very differently across different departments. You can't assume that every person you're going to be speaking to from a funding organisation, and I apologise for doing the speech marks there, is actually, has got the same stream, the same process. You have to adopt a different approach with every single person you want to engage with.
It's the process. I mean, obviously I can, relatively there is an application process across the board when you're talking about public funding, and that will entail essentially providing us with evidence of what it is that you're looking to undertake, evidence that you have a strong track record of delivering it or something similar to that in the past. Good governance, and also governance. Okay, so giving us evidence to show us that you have the capacity to deliver it to completion.
That you got your shit together, basically.
It has to be together. As I said, there's an application form. In relation to the Arts Council, there is a standard application form that we asked you to fill in, which just gives us who you are, where you're from, what your organisation is, how long you've been running, etc. Also the budget for what it is that you want to do. But also you have to include a proposal, which goes across a couple of headings, well actually 4 headings, which are artistic. You have to describe what it is from an artistic point of view that you're trying to achieve. The management around it, as I said, for example, providing a timetable project plan, telling us what the key stages are and who's going to be delivering those stages. The team, the project management team, who they are, track records with each individual as well. The budget, how you've come across that, how you sourced it. Also, for us to assess whether it's either the costings are too low or too excessive. And most important, particularly from an Arts Council point of view, because it's public money, how the public is going to benefit from the activity.
That was really good, because we've got to remember that this is public money, so it has to have some kind of public benefit. It really does. It can't just be funding for your business or your enterprise or your commercial record sales or your event that you want to put on. It has to have some public benefit.
Okay, it's not free money, is it, Neil?
I like stories, and there was once there was once a little bear, right? And the bear lived in a cave, and every day the bear used to go out, and someone used to come and put food outside his cave. And so the bear grew up and got fat, lived his life, and then one day the food wasn't there anymore. And that's what's happened in the funding world, and that's what I was just going to say, was that there's no free meals, and a lot of people come to me and say, let's do a thing, yeah, right, you fill out the application, and then we'll just cut like 50% off here, and man can just, yeah. And it's not like that at all, and the thing is, I think, a couple of things I would say is that there's funding out there still, but now if there was 10 people 10 bears after that meal, there's now 50 people after that meal. And what you have to understand is that some of those bears are bears that have been around for 50 years. You know, and they're big bears, and they're coming they're coming for all the money. That's what you have to understand. They're coming for all the money, and so it's a really difficult climate that we're going into. There's cuts all over the place. But I don't say that to put you off. I just say that to keep it real, because we spent the last 18 months as a business looking at how we don't need funding, and how we can start to move towards a mix of in our business where it helps us, it adds to us, and it accentuates what we do. However, it's not as big a meal for us as it used to be. So I think that's quite an important thing. Sorry.
Considering you're all not like suicidal and just ready to walk out and say, well, what was the point of all that then? Considering you've all got excellent projects and organisations and plans, and you still want to be here and find out how to ascertain that wonderful public money that comes with plenty of strings attached, let's find out about the nitty-gritty. And to be honest with you, the nitty-gritty is that application, because I'm looking around the room at loads of creative, entrepreneurial, interesting people with loads of ideas that could benefit the public, but how are you actually going to translate that into getting the funding at the end of the day? And when push comes to shove, and it will, and it does, and it hurts, it's always about the bid right. It's about the application. So, as interestingly as we can, let's have a go at asking this panel, what are you looking for from a group applying, and what are you looking for in a project?
I think the main thing for us, if you're applying for us for any money, the key things is obviously it's got to be new music, and it's got to be pioneering music. We don't fund stuff that's in a kind of safe area. If it's pushing boundaries anywhere, we'll happily fund it, and that's probably the main reason that we have to turn a lot of people down. So assuming you're new and you're pioneering, then I guess the main thing with the application is probably impact is probably the main thing. If you can prove to us that you've got what your project's going to do, what your music's going to do is make a real impact, and you're clear with how you want, what your vision, how you want the impact to be, then that really comes across, and it helps us argue our case to our trustees and within the applications team. So that kind of clarity of vision and what you hope to achieve is probably the easiest way to explain how to kind of make a successful application. And then also like we were saying before about making sure that it's relevant to the organisation you're applying to. For us, a big thing is reaching new audiences. So if you can talk about the impact with new audiences and stuff like that, that'll definitely help us. And then we have different schemes. So if you're doing one of our partnership schemes, it's good to look at who we're maybe partnering with. Like we're doing this Cultural Olympiad bid thing with BBC Radio 3. So in that way, you've kind of got to look at the remit of what those other organisations might be and how you can please those individuals, and that makes again easier for us to try and award you money. So I think that's probably the main thing, is the kind of your impact, clarity, and awareness of exactly why you're applying for money and why we would give it to you, and how you can make it as easy as possible to give it to us. For us to give it to you.
Because we give primarily to individuals, we're looking at you as a person, not your, you may be part of a group or something, where we're looking at investing in you. So we want to be convinced that you're the kind of person worth taking a punt on, that you can show us that you're entrepreneurial, that you've got ideas that are exciting, that you've
you're committed to this and you've got evidence of what you've been doing. I always say, like, we like to see people who've been helped, who you want to help because they've been doing everything, and where it makes sense that if we step in, that's the thing that will break them or into the next level. With regard to our application process, it's an online application. We run it every year, but actually we're in a bit of a strategic review like the rest of the world at the moment. So
Strategic review.
yeah, which I think is a way of saying we need to, because there's so many changes, we just need to step back for a minute. I will say that we're not funded by the license fee, so it's not your TV license that's paying for this, in case you're looking for the money back. But we actually are funded by phone votes on shows like Over the Rainbow, to find the new Dorothy. We get 14p from every phone call. Those 14p's add up, and we got £430,000 just from that show. So if you feel like voting on those shows, remember this is where your money can end up. We don't just fund urban, we also fund choirs, musical theatre. We're looking at moving into dance and theatre more next year. But what I will say is, because we give to individuals, the key thing that we look for is that you can stand up and say what makes you unique, why we should invest in you. And I know asking people to fill in an application form may be quite daunting because it might not be something that you're used to doing. But because of the volume of people who apply, so loads and loads of people apply, we have to really be able to see what are the ones that stick out. What are the ones when you're reading 50 application forms, what's the one that's going to make you think, okay, there's somebody who's worth seeing? And then we interview, and there's a couple of other stages before you actually get the money. But the key thing is to make yourself stand
Above. Hello. Stand out above the rest was what I was going to say.
So we're going to talk about rejections. It's going to happen if you apply for stuff. Just it's like anything in life. You're going to get a few no's before you get a yes. So just prepare yourself for it. Try not to let it discourage you too much. But I'm going to ask what the most common reasons for rejections. I'm going to ask Victor, but I'm going to ask Pip. But then I'm also going to ask the rejections that he's had and the feedback that he's got from that, because it's really important. If you do get a rejection, don't just rip it up and throw it in the shredder. It's important that you pick up the phone and ask why, because you can build on that in the future, and it also helps with relationships. So, Victor, why do you reject everything?
Thanks a lot. I think there are three main things that jump out in terms of rejections. The first thing I would say is really, and it's quite again, the obvious thing is not enough public engagement involved. It's too much of a yeah. It's all about basically the self rather than the masses. It reaching the masses. There's a lot of people that don't realise that their activity, whilst it's a great artistic activity, they can't actually demonstrate where it's going to, where the public is going to benefit. Like, say for example, recordings. We do not fund recordings because it's very, very difficult for us at that moment, at that stage in its process, to determine what the public benefit will be of that recording. So there's that. There's a public engagement. That's a big thing. Lack of. The second big thing is lack of demand for what you're doing. You might think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic, but if you're not showing us that other people feel the same way by either contributing to the budget. We don't fund anything 100%. We always insist on at least 10% match funding from external sources, be it like for example, commercial sponsorship, local authorities, depending on what it is that you're doing, or in-kind support. So not necessarily hard cash, but they're giving you something. Yeah, like for example, a free venue for the project. That to us shows that there's demand. Demand from the people that you're trying to engage with. Like say for example, if it's something for artists, you're trying to showcase artists, show demand from artists about that. And again, demand from the public as well, via either ticket sales or via social networking.
Just to give you an example of what it means there, it's like
say I'm going to put together a great project, it's going to cost 10 grand, and I go, yeah, Victor, hook me up, yeah, I've got this wicked project, yeah, and he's like, how much? I'm like, 10 grand. He's like, well, how much is the project worth? I'm like, 10 grand. He's like, well, am I the only person that believes in this project then? So if you can prove that somebody else believes in that project, someone else has vouched for you, someone else has put their money where their mouth is, or given you free equipment or free whatever, all of a sudden Victor's like, all right, well, if they're interested, it's like anything else, you know? And I know you guys are going to know how to hustle that one, right?
The third one is financial, and it's about the budget. You know, some budgets are just absolutely unrealistic in that, you know, they don't seem realistic that you're going to be able to pull it off. The main thing is, you know, in terms of costings, if you're paying yourself a large amount, and you're only paying the people that actually deliver the work, like the artist, a certain amount, then obviously that does not look fair. This is public money, so at the end of the day, what we need to demonstrate is value for money. So, for example, one of the ways that we determine value for money is we look at the subsidy, i.e. the amount of money that you're asking for, and then we divide that by the amount of people that you say that the activity is going to reach. So, you know, it's all about value for money with that. So those are the three things that make or break an application.
I was going to pick up on two things in terms of how you're approaching making an application and what will help you make it successful. The right person for the right job. If you're a creative, you may not be the best person at filling out that form. Get the right person to help you with that. Make sure you're drawing on the skills from the right people. You know, if you're not the best person in terms of either selling yourself and that somebody else has got, you know, much more capability in terms of just putting it onto paper and putting it in that kind of professional speak that we all like to see, and we all are unfortunately obliged to ask for, get the right person to do it. The other key thing I think, and it was based very much on a couple of examples that spring to mind on funding applications I've seen recently, is don't assume that person knows anything about you or anything about your organisation or anything about your plans. Do not leave anything unsaid. I'll give an example of a funding application from a music manager that was asking for money for his band to go to an event overseas. It was a British Music Abroad scheme through the PRS Foundation. And great act, already had one successful UK album, had a good label behind them, great international potential, new album to come out, so they were absolutely the right point to be going into an international trade event and presenting themselves to an international audience with the idea of getting international deal and touring opportunities, etc. I knew all that about that band, I knew all that about that company, but when they came to their funding application, they didn't tell us that. All they did was just write a couple of lines, this is the band, this is what we want to do, but there was absolutely no structure, no real meat on the bones. We needed to say, for them to say, we're going to get out there, who we're going to talk to, who we're promoting to, what our promotional plan is. And you just cannot assume that people are going to be able to read between the lines. You've got to answer those questions.
So, Pip, really what you're saying is, even though you really wanted to fund them, because of the application and the rules and the guidance, it was frustrating because you wanted to, but you couldn't.
Yeah. They simply hadn't supplied the evidence. We can't fill out that form for you. We can't put, write little notes on the paper saying, oh yeah, we know that, however, no matter what they said, we can't do it for you. We can't, that would, again, if anybody else was appealing their judgment about handing out money, we'd be on a hiding to nothing.
So, been in the game for a while, your bands have had some rejections along the way. So, what was the most common reasons that you received rejections from after getting your feedback?
First of all, I have to say I really take rejection badly. And I think maybe what's interesting, a couple of things is to talk about. I put in some applications recently, and some of the reasons why we haven't got them have been quite interesting. I think one of them, even after all these years of writing applications, we got turned down because we hadn't sold our story well enough. And I think this is a really important one. One of the reasons why I think it's an exciting time for people like us and people like yourselves is because we have the ideas, and our thinking is quite far ahead of a lot of people who understand how to write applications. They're writing on old formulas, and whereas the concepts and ideas, the things that you guys have are new and fresh and relevant to where we are now. If you listen, the way people are talking on this panel, 3 years ago it was not this conversation. Urban wasn't even discussed about. The idea, it was just beginning to eke in. 5 years before that, it was really hard. Like 6, 7 years before that, forget it. And like, thank you, Johnsy. And so I think one is about how well you sold the concept, and as Victor said, is how well you kind of sold yourself. And a really good way of that is about people who support you, and about people that you put around you who already have an opinion, already have a track record, who can lend that support to you. Like, I can't tell you how much of our work happens only because still now we have people who support us. That's a really big one. I think the other thing is, once you have the concept, it's about developing the relationships. Always phone the person who's giving out the money. Talk to them. Ask them, hey, like, I've got a couple of questions. Even if you haven't really got questions and you think you figured it out, say, hey, look, I just want to ask you a couple of questions. I'm not sure about this. My first time applying to you. I want to find out. Get a feel for them. Get a feel for it. They'll tell you bits and pieces in between the lines about what they're looking for. Generally, is what I find. And you can start to build a little relationship with them, even if it's only a 5-minute conversation. When your application comes in, they somehow hopefully register. Oh, that's Bob from Bob. Well, this is maybe I'm old school now. And then also the other thing is partnerships. Partnerships are really, really important. Like, don't underestimate in kind. It's a really good way to build support. If someone is going to say, all right, I'm going to help you write the application, that's in-kind support. How much do you get paid a day? All right, you're making 30 grand a year, right? The day is like £110, 50 pence. You spend 3 days on it, that's 331 pounds 50 pence. You know what I mean? Like that. All of those things you need to add to it, because they're all like a lot in developing businesses. We take it for granted that we're putting in a lot of time and energy, and a lot of people around us are putting in a lot of time and energy. And that's one of the things that a lot of fund riders and bid riders are really good at, is jotting down all of those things, all the time, all the places, all of those things that build the case for it. And so it's really important. And also, if someone's going to give you something, then great. So if the printer is going to give you 10% off on the flyers, that's in-kind support. And then last thing is process. Don't underestimate the process. Like, you have to understand that it's a machine and they're giving out money, so they're going to watch every step of that, and you have to really kind of take time to understand the process, understand how they select stuff. So sometimes, for example, like I know in a funding round, it might come to an end. The funding round might be coming to an end, and it's the worst time to put in an application because everyone whacks in an application in the last one round. And it's better when someone announces it, stick your application in then. Get it together, stick it in then, because you stand a much better chance. Because we put in I got told, this was by Arts Council actually. We got told it was a really great project. This was last year. It was a really great project, and ordinarily would have funded it, but you came third in, and we only had two spots to fund in that particular round. You should have applied the next round, and you would have got it. You just picked the peak season. So that you have to really get into the psychology of the fundraising or that money giving process, and understand which is the best place to jump in there and get that.
Who's feeling daunted? Seriously, who's feeling daunted? Only Ara is feeling daunted. You're all alright with this, yeah? You're understanding everything. You're going to just go home now and whip yourself up a bid, right? Get funded all in 2 months. Am I right? I'm not right. So you're daunted then, right? I'm daunted. I would be completely daunted. And that's kind of the whole purpose of this. Not just to daunt you, but to show that there is success stories. I'm going to move on to those success stories shortly, because everybody in this room is capable of achieving one of those. The first 3 bids I did for Urban Music Seminar back in... I put 3 bids out. I tried to get 325,000. Yeah, I know, I'm old school too, rub it in. 3 bids out there, and then I put another 7. The total was 335,000. Do you know how much money I raised? 6 grand.
£6,000. However, the next year, worked at Music Matrix, learned a bit about the process, learned a bit about the relationships, managing it, the bids, and in the space of 18 months, for other organisations, I'd raised £475,000 in the space of 8 months. 8 months. It is possible, but something I've got to highlight is, we were all saying it before you got here, like how we're going to try and keep this upbeat, because it kind of couldn't have come at a worse time, because we've got a Tory government. Because seriously, no. But because there's just cuts everywhere, and unfortunately, we're not the NHS, believe it or not. Unlike some practitioners have compared us, the arts are one of the first things to go, and trust me, they are going. Did anybody read about the Film Council? Just like that, in a day. 48 hours notice, see ya. And they're giving out millions and millions, and that's cut off a life supply to a lot of small creative organisations underneath them. And we are that for music. So I'm going to put everybody on the spot now and make myself really unpopular. And I'm going to ask them, come to Victor last, what percentage of your spend, Luke, you're not going to like me that much either, what percentage of your spend is spent on urban music projects? And be real, because I have the statistics. You know I do.
All that information's classified. We're working to improve our percentage of urban funding. It's about, at the moment, about 15% at the moment.
Generous?
Round it up. It is,
8.75. Go on.
8.75, there we go. But we're working on improving it, and I think I really agree with what Lee was saying about talking. I mean, we understand that our application process is quite alien to a lot of people, especially people that have come from a commercial background, and definitely feel free to give us a call and discuss, any problems you're having with the process or ideas you have about it, because we're looking for ways to broaden who we bring in and talk to the people.
Can I just say, I know I was a bit mean earlier, but I have to say, Performing Rights Society Foundation, Luke is fantastic, and I have to say, they're like the new breed of funders. They are interactive, they are a small team, they will talk to you, they will email, give me back and forth, it will take them a week, but they will do it, and most funding organisations are not like that. They are, I'm picking you up here, I'm picking you up, I can say worse, 8.75% for urban spend. Ooh, we've got number ones all over it, 8.75, anyway. But they really are, so don't feel like you can reach out to these people, you can do it, and their online form is a lot easier to use than the old style, and it's a lot shorter than you'd expect. Some of these bids, we're talking 6,000 words, PRSF is not like that. They like things on bullet points, which I know suits busy people like us a lot better. So I know I just kind of put him in a spot, but do communicate. PRSF, they're all right. They're definitely worth a look.
I'm not very good at maths, so
Luckily I am.
yeah, I don't know, what, 15, 20%?
It is.
Yeah, 20%.
18.5.
18.5%.
It's not bad.
Based on the budget that I have this current year of £120,000 to deliver projects right across the music sector, that's for all genres, irrespective of any kind of activity. I have a target of trying to help 320 businesses. At the moment, I think probably, if I was going to try and put a number out of that 120 grand, about 20 to 25 grand will go towards helping kind of urban activity. And it may not be direct urban activity, it may well be supporting urban artists that are participating in a number of our events, that kind of thing. In terms of our business support organisation, the business-to-business advice, I'm absolutely sure there'll be figures on it, but I couldn't give them to you because they're not my...
Okay, you ready for this? Okay. To give you the whole context, Arts Council spends £500 million a year on the arts, and that's across all the art forms. Music spends roughly around 100 million of that. 80% of that gets spent in support of classical music.
82.79.
That's close, that's close. Every other genre is supported by the remainder. Now,
Every other genre.
every other genre. We're talking
it's not
folk
jazz.
music, we're talking urban,
Jazz.
we're talking jazz, we're talking every other
So
art
we all
form.
share that.
Now, out of that, I honestly cannot tell you that we spend £1 million a year on urban music, because we don't. We are talking maybe half of that. Now
Has
this,
anybody got a tissue?
it's a historic problem, and I can go into the reasons as to why and the reasons as to, where.
No, we
Thank
don't
you.
have time. We don't
Thanks
have time. But catch him after.
Arts Council was set up, to support certain institutions, and I have to say I've been at the Arts Council 4 years now, and I honestly can tell you that we are having honest conversations right now that we've not had in the 4 years that I've been there. So it's a case of
This isn't therapy, so we've really got to go move on
okay,
now.
all right. That's it. Anyway, that's a picture.
Victor really does fight the good fight though, guys. So he really, he's here, and it's not easy to get one of them here, to be honest with you. And he understands it, and he will communicate that to you in a very honest and frank way. So we're really lucky to have him.
Two things. First of all, Victor is actually one of the really good guys. So talk to him afterwards, honestly. There's two things. One is you have to understand, right? We're keeping it real. One is about access. A lot of the information that about funding enables a lot of organisations to exist because you have to sift for the information. So it's a very good way to keep the market small by not letting people like you know, because the reason why it's not good for you guys to know is because you guys have all the new ideas, and your ideas will make their ideas look redundant in a lot of ways. That's keeping it real. So 2.5 years ago, I was approached to by a fund set up by Paul Hamlin Foundation, which is in my top 3 favourite foundations in terms of giving money.
You have like a top 10 favourite foundations. I love that.
I have a list, and they're really good. They're really good because it's an English institution, but they care about the money that they give, and it's not just the process. But anyway, just to give an example of how closely the information is guarded. I was only invited to that fund because they recruited 40 people around the country from the arts, who then selected someone who they thought was able to apply to this fund, and it was for a significant amount of money, and out of those 40 people, only 4 people were chosen. And so what you have to understand is that you can't even apply to that fund. But by me telling you, is what I want you to understand is that actually you have to start going to those people and saying, I hear about these things, right? How do I get involved in it? I have read and understand what they want. And once you've formulated that idea and it's crystal clear in your head and you've run it past 20 people, go there and knock on the door and say, hey, or call me or someone else. Right, 07949.
Good lie.
Right, and do you understand what I'm saying? You just need to understand that there's a lot. I sat in a meeting once where they cut up £1.4 million in 20 minutes. Woof, 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 woof. Just like not Paul Hamlin. This was a government agency actually, and I was just a fly on the wall in it. But you have to understand that is going to increase. You have to really find out what's it called, jobs funding for. Have you got a list of places for them? Okay, so really you have to spend time understanding and evaluating what's going on out there.
Really quick, 2 sentences. Give me an example of something relevant that you're really, really happy to support. I'm just going to, for ease, I'm going to start with it.
I Love Live.
Explain what it is. Explain what it is.
Bigga fish.
I Love Live. Who's heard of I Love Live? Okay.
Where's
Is Jade here?
Jade? Jade's here.
Yeah.
Big up Jade. Big up Jade.
I Love Live is a series of monthly showcases. Weekly. Monthly at the moment. Hopefully
Wait till you get the activity report, I'm writing.
for urban music. It allows urban artists to perform live, which is something that is very, 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 very needed, very crucial. And it is a fantastic platform.
Project I'm most proud of being involved in the past year was something called Roscrame Presents at South by Southwest, which is where we presented a fantastic showcase of 5 British urban artists on the US stage, introduced them to an international audience, and that was from new emerging talent like Maverick Sabre right up to Estelle, and proudest achievement of the year. I cried at the end of the night.
I don't know if I count, but the Breakthrough Foundation, which was the name of that fund, the Breakthrough, I think it's called the Breakthrough Fund, and I got money to develop a new stock exchange for creative young people. So you're going to see it coming in New York.
It's really hard for me to pick one because they're all individuals rather than projects. So it's like picking which one of your children would you save. I'm going to say Andrea Triana because we've known her for 5 years. She came to us for funding in 2005. She got funding from us in 2008. So she went away, took the feedback, really thought about what she was doing, and has now got her deal with Ninja Tune. So I'm doing really well.
I'd like to just give a nod to Pip here for the probably British Music Abroad is one of our most kind of flagship projects we're really proud about. We've supported people like Sway and Master Shorty and helped them to move to the next point in their career, which has been massively heartwarming to see, and just really proud to see those people. It's exactly what we try and do, give them some help in whatever way, small way we can, and then see them just move forward exponentially after that. That really makes you go home and think, we are doing something right, this is working, this is brilliant. So yeah, I think, and that's obviously in connection with UKTO, so I think that's one of our purposes.
Yeah, Shahid here. I want to actually ask a question to the chair, because you started off by saying that the panel shouldn't be using jargon or anything like that. And although I totally agree with you, and they shouldn't be using jargon and so on, but from my experience in helping businesses to be investment ready, they have to use jargon. And whether we're talking about banks or venture capital or public funding, we have to use a lot of jargon. And whereby I'm explaining that companies need to be, viable, profitable, sustainable, a lot of companies do not seem to understand that. So my question to you will be, are you doing anything, and if so, what, to influence some of your panelists to become less jargon on their application processes? I mean, you mentioned that the BFI Foundation is pretty good, but what about the Arts Council, who have got quite a lot of money to spend? UKTI, sorry to hear you got a very small budget, but these, and so on and so forth. I mean, can we do something to influence your panelists to become less, to become jargon-free?
That was a brilliant question, and you're right. I didn't mean to seem hypocritical. It's just that I want everybody in this room to have it broken down and understand it. And anybody on this panel, anyone who knows me, knows I'm the most straight-talking person. But you're right. When I'm writing a bid for somebody and I'm putting a project together, or I'm lobbying, and I lobby hard, I will use legacy. I will use exclusion. I will use exponent. I will use BAME. I will use I can drop it hard, but it's not that I don't think we should have to do that. But you're right, in the current climate we do have to do that. We do have to get a bit schooled. But personally, I wish it wasn't there. And there's events that Small Green Shoots has been doing, which are I'm hoping to get off the ground, which I did at Music Matrix, which are networking events where you can talk to these people up close and keep those relationships going, where they can have a look and prove your work. It's a service that we used to offer at Music Matrix. On a smaller level, I offer it at Small Green Shoots, so I'm really reluctant to say this, but if anybody's writing a bid and they want someone to have a look at it, if I have time, or if the staff have time, we would have a look at it for you and help out, if we have time.
I wasn't going to say that.
Hi, my name's Sonia, and I'm also work with organisation funds as well. A lot of your points are valid, so I can't see your name. Nye? Yeah. Yeah. Me, sorry. The way that we also work is that if people contact us directly and ask us to come and visit their projects, that makes it a lot easier. I work for an organisation that has a fair bit of money, and we have. What's it called? I'm not saying. But what I am trying to say is that it's not all doom and gloom. There are organisations that are out there. You come and talk to me afterwards. But just to give you an example. But just to give you an example, I attend a lot of events like this, and I will stand up and tell people that they can get in contact with me, and I will work with projects to ensure that they can get our funding. And in terms of, for example, talking about sort of urban music projects, I haven't been approached by anybody, but if I was approached, I would support it. So we are out there to support you, and we are keen to get projects like this off the ground. So, you know, just try and ask.
Hi. Like Sonia, I also work for a funding organisation. There seems to be a lot of us here tonight. And there are different types of funding available. People on the panel here tonight are talking about grant funding. However, you have to realise that grant funding is a rapidly shrinking source of funding. Like the man there, I often engage with organisations and direct them towards different sources of funding, such as venture capital, think Dragon's Den, type investments, or bank investments. And those worlds are slightly different to grant funding. Grant funders tend to focus on public benefit and engagement with the public and outcomes and nice soft touchy things. Your private venture capital and bankers tend to want to talk about the bottom line. Know your shit. Get your figures together. Work on cash flow forecasts. Make them realistic. Make them at least 3 years long. If you have an organisation that is running keep accounts, if you don't know how to keep accounts, go on a course. Business Link run really easy, convenient, local courses on the basics of business. Get your business shit together. Even if you're applying for grants, people who know their business plan, who have a business plan that includes financial information, like I say, cash flow forecasts. Get an accountant. If you've got an accountant, great. Get to know your accounts. There's no point in having an accountant produce accounts if you don't understand what they mean, because your income, your accounts, the cash flow through your business will determine whether or not you are fundable to a private venture capitalist. A venture capitalist, an individual or a venture capital organisation such as Venturesome or Bigga Invest, they're looking to see how profitable you're going to be. Therefore, you have to play around with the figures. You've really got to know how much money is in what it is you're proposing. I'm not going to bore you anymore. If you want to come and talk to me,
yeah,
please
I've got a
do.
question. Which organisation are you from?
I'm not too sure I want to tell you what organisation I'm from.
Two things can I just say? First of all, you guys should be telling us.
Yeah.
That's the spirit of this.
Okay.
Second,
I'm not here in an official capacity.
that's all right. We don't mind.
I also happen to be an urban artist. I'm a dancer.
I know, but to be fair,
But, okay, the organisation I work for, we deliver a government-backed investment fund. We've got 2 pots of money. Under that, we can give small amounts of grant funding.
We've got 2 minutes. You gotta just tell us. You gotta just tell us.
Okay. The organisation is called the Social Investment Business.
Thank you very much. Okay. Right. Second point. Can I just say, right, in terms of understanding how you should run your game, notice that John ZD is standing in between both of those funders. Can I just say that? Notice that. That's how you have to roll. Exposure, sorry.
Hello everybody, my name is Redwood-Sawyer. I'm a virtual personal assistant. For all of those who don't know what that is, basically I can help you filling in your forms. Luckily for me, I also work for local government, so I've seen the other end of all of this. So everyone's got their pen and papers. It's www.rsvpa.co.uk. get in contact.
What's your day rate? Sorry, what's your day rate? Oh, you don't want to tell us?
It's £25 an hour, but I am,
45
because,
an hour?
25, but because you're all, anyone who's sort of at the startup phase, it is negotiable, okay?
Hello, everyone. Teddy Nye is my name. Fully Focused Productions is one of the companies, and Fully Focused Community Trust. I've got a couple of questions for the panel, and the first one is to the panel in general, not aimed at anyone specifically, but with the current climate changing as it is, do you have specific advice about different routes that we can go down and different ways to approach funding with all the cuts that are taking place?
What I would say is that particularly because of the way that things are going right now, where public funding is concerned, it's ever dwindling, as a lady said. What we're saying to organisations that we fund regularly and organisations that we, just give advice out to is you have to be looking at a mixed economy. Don't just look at one source for your funding. Look at commercial sponsorship, in-kind sponsorship as well. Economies of scale as well. So it's all about partnership as well. That's what I would say.
You have to be absolutely acutely conscious of keeping tabs on what's going on as well, being very, very sort of aware of the developments, keeping an eye on things. And at the moment we're in a spending, what's called a government spending review period, where for me as a department I'm having to submit plans and ideas about how we can save money. Our priority at the moment is trying to take that money necessarily from us and our organisation as opposed to what's going to help you externally. So that's going to be all coming over the next few months. You just need to keep really aware, keep really, really politically aware of media and the news and what's going on.
I heard of somebody the other day, a guy I work with, his son, who's 18, got 25 grand from an organisation called Angel's Den. They're like Dragon's Den, where you can go and pitch an idea, and they've started investing in music and urban music. They look at the charts, they see what's happening, they're thinking somebody's making money somewhere. So there are people out there who are willing to invest. So definitely ask people, where did you get your money from? Who were the people that you went and spoke to? And people are quite happy to talk about stuff, So just ask the question.
Businesses can write off money. There's some tax loopholes which enable businesses to write off money if they invest in risky creative projects. So you need to have a look at that. I think it closes at the end of this financial year. So that's how a lot of films are being funded. I know some artists now are starting to get investment from that kind of way. I think also the other thing I would say is small is easier to get now. I think you have to kind of collect it from a few pots. So don't try and write an application for this one and then take another project, the same project, and try and twist it for something else, because you'll end up. The worst thing you can do is not deliver on the project, because you'll never get any money off those people again. As well, also commercial. Thing is that with the scene there's more money in our scene now than ever before. So you just everyone knows someone now. Look, Scorcher got apparently £1 million deal in the paper today. There's money around. There's more marketability. There's more profitability in it. So try and look at some of those things there, and come see me. 079. If you need anything, I'll help.
I work for a social enterprise looking to get the 18 to 24-year-olds into the creative industry. My question is something that Victor said, that part of your funding has already been allocated, and something that you said as well, that a pot of money has already been, put aside for certain projects. I was just wondering, now with this this big society fund and coming up, how can we lobby the right people from the start, so that's there is certain money allocated for work, projects that we're interested in, rather than
finding that most of the money is already allocated for other projects, and you only get 5%. We are part of the big society. Do we lobby MPs? How do we go forward? I don't think that there's an interesting thing about what the Conservatives are doing about this idea of moving money, big society, moving money from the institutions into grassroots organisations. Potentially, it's really exciting. I had a conversation with them about 2 years ago, and their mindset seemed in the right place about it. So, listen, let me tell you, Nat here has got so many shades. But listen, you need to talk to all the people. Simple. That's where the money's at. Straight. So in terms of that, I think there's actually an opportunity coming for people who are really doing the grassroots work. In terms of the answer to your question and how you do that, start with your MPs. It sounds corny. Start with your MPs. No. Yeah, start with your MPs, right? You know, you've got to newsletters. I in 10 years I haven't really done a newsletter. I just started this month doing a newsletter, right? And every 2 weeks it's going out now to everyone. This is what we do. This is what we do. Because what's happening is lots of people who don't really do the work are getting the money. And unless we start to articulate to those people, no, actually the real work is going on over here, or other work is going on over here, it's not going to we're not going to get that at the table. So start with your MPs, invite them to everything, invite your local councillors, invite your, every borough more or less, or used to, have an arts officer, youth inclusion officers, you know, after learning. Every school has like an out of schools coordinator, out of schools learning coordinator. Invite all of those people to your stuff, you know. In fact, we're having an event at Rich Mix, you know, afterwards. Like, if any of you guys, when you finish here, come over there. We're having a great one there, free drinks, bruh. Listen, thank you very much.
I lobby. I was at David Miliband's office last Tuesday. I was with Frank Dobson on Thursday. I was at the House of Commons twice the week before. Anything I can do to bring in a bit of relevance, to just show the disparity. I'm working quite closely with UK Music. If you don't know it, get to know it. They've recognised this. We need to be more of a network. We need to support each other. I know it's difficult because we're all in business, or you might think about competition. Listen, what is the point of us fighting over 0.0 scraps? Whereas together we could actually have some kind of lobbying power and do something. Instead of me being on my own. You know, I'm out there, small green shoots, but pretty much it's me, Ellis and Ajax, you know, going to these things. And it's every other night. I've got a 4-year-old. My sister will tell you, I'm out 3 nights a week, spreading the word, talking about Ransquami, introduced them to UKTI, Live, introduced them to Arts Council, all their favourite projects, every single one of them, I've introduced them, I've worked with them, or I've financed them. I'm just one person. Imagine what this room would be. Imagine if it was all of you. So it's about getting involved, being political, get the flipping Guardian, read the Independent, look at News 24, it's all relevant. They're looking at it, speak their language. They're not going to come to and learn ours, trust me, because we're nothing to them. We're not the Philharmonic, we're not the Royal Opera House, we're not the ballet, those are the big boys. They have to do very, very minimal. When they start talking about engagement and inclusion, well, what they mean is we're working with, you know, this lot here. They're not actually doing it, they're getting other organisations to do that and then breaking them off a pittance. They're just ticking their boxes. They don't mean it, they don't feel it, they're just ticking that box and taking that money. I'm getting too carried away, aren't I? Sorry guys, I get like this sometimes. This is what I do. But seriously, you know, keep really strong, keep your projects together, and don't give up. It's like the more applications they see, the more that people like here, they're not paid, you know, Ara. They're not paid, so they come in here because they do believe in what you're doing and they do want to spread the word. They're not getting paid for it. So they're here for a reason. So the more they hear about what you do, the more you actually put things forward instead of giving up, is the more power you've got in numbers. So don't give up, stick with it, make your voice heard, and keep informed. You know, let's learn their language, let's beat them at their own game, all right? What was the question?
Hello, my name is Michael Philippa. I run a live music night called Adlib. It's on the second Sunday of every month, next month of August the 8th. And I would like to know, because I've been trying to apply for funding several times, what's the best way to set up a company? Is it limited, not-for-profit, or a charity? Because I think with the arts,
Limits, I guarantee!
Limited by guarantee.
Yeah.
That's the best way. Why?
Yeah, cheap.
Cheap.
It's cheap, you can do it.
But
do it
then-
tomorrow.
The PRS Foundation, am I right to say they'll only support...
No, they'll support that. They'll support limited by guarantee.
They'll support limited guarantee.
They all do.
Okay, I think you answered my question.
Is there like a yellow pages where you can actually find out the different...
I'm glad you asked that. There's no yellow pages. They don't want us in there, okay? So you have to learn it, and you have to. If you haven't got time, then learn it from someone else, and that's kind of why I'm here. So there is CEDA, there's Grant Finder, there's a Directory of Social Change. Oh, sorry. I could probably email this to them. There's CEDA, which is spelled CIDA. There's Grant Finder, which is a website alongside Fund Finder. Now what they say is you've got to get a subscription, which is going to cost you some crazy money. But they give you this free 7-day trial, and you just rinse that 7 days, print everything else off, and put it in a binder. That's what I did. Then you've got the Directory of Social Change, really highfalutin. Make sure you read that website and contact them with a dictionary in your hand. But they know about every single fund and trust also, and foundations, the small ones. Sometimes if you're not feeling confident in doing a big 20, 50 grand bid, do a $3,000, do a do 1,500. Start off small, you know. You'll build up confidence and you'll build up experience, and the Directory of Social Change is good for those. Also, there's local councils. Seriously, you know what Lee was saying about getting in touch with your local arts council, the local one. They got funds for like £500 or £800, but they're a mine of information. They'll give you free consultancy. And they're looking for people like you. So, get involved. They need to tick their boxes too. So be that tick, basically. And then there's the Voluntary Arts Network. They're kind of like hippie, environmental, yeah man, but they really mean well. So, I would get onto their website, Capital Community Foundation as well. They work quite closely with. They've got funds from the big boys, the bankers like Deutsche Bank. And at the same time, those rich guys that die and leave loads of money in trusts for years and years and years, and everybody forgets to apply for it, so that's out there, that's good. And also they've got a grassroots scheme as well, which is quite easy to apply for, but you have to do it with someone from the a local voluntary organisation, and they'll help you through the application process for free. So it's really, really useful to know those as well. There's a few others, but I'm not going to bore you anymore.
Why does it seem like all the same bears, as Lee said, get funded?
Quite simply because they hold the information, they hold the knowledge, they hold the access, they know where to go. Now, and they talk the language as well. It's, from an Arts Council perspective, the language in which the Arts Council speaks is a barrier in itself. So unless you naturally speak that language, you're not gonna get through those doors. So it's about understanding, like Nee said as well, and what Nat said, it's about understanding the processes, understanding the people behind the process as well, getting to know them, because they will give you the knowledge, they will give you the information on how to actually access that funding. And once you get it, you'll be just like those big bears. It's as simple as that. And then it is just all about your art. It's all about your shit, basically. It's about how good your art is. That will be what will keep you in there.
I'd say that it's laziness. That's why they fund the same people, because they're lazy. They fund the same people because they're scared. They want a safe pair of hands that no one's going to question. They fund the same people because they're scared of who's on the committees of those people. They don't want to upset this politician. They don't want to upset this law. They don't want to upset. We don't have access to that. We are our own network in this room, so we have to work together because there's no way we can compete with them. They've been going all 102,000 years. I'd also say that it's the language. They've got a language that we don't speak, and I've had to learn. And one of my biggest things is that it may or may not be helpful, but my personal belief is that people that are in creative industries and are creative and artistic should be just that. They shouldn't have to go through all of this. They shouldn't, because why should you be good at... You're an artist, you're a creative person. What makes anybody think you're going to be great at sitting down and writing this stuff? Or paying a bid writer £350 a day to do it for you? Who's got the money for that? And that's why we're constantly excluded.
I just want to actually reinforce the point about why they're there, but why they always get it as well. The lobbying thing, that is such an important thing. It's all about lobbying. These people, I'll give you an example. Royal Opera House, they get 25 million from us each year. Now, if we were to try, and of course we've got arguments
All of the urban sector
upon arguments as to why that money should not, that money should be shared out to other art forms, other genres of, like, for example, it's public money. Joe and Jane blogs, the question is, how often do they go to the Royal Opera House? How often do they really get to benefit from the Opera House? Now, that's an argument right there, it's a clear-cut one, but if you try and take a pound away from the Royal Opera House, MPs will come down on you, government will come down on you because of the power of their lobbying, and it's all about the lobbying power. That is a massive thing. So it is really getting to know the right people, but also the language thing as well is a major thing. If you take one of our funding schemes, such as Grants for the Arts, the application form is a language barrier in itself. And one of the things that I and a few of my other colleagues as well are trying to do now are surgeries on a regular basis where we break down that application form. So it's definitely, those are the key issues.
I totally agree with that. It's we get applications in and it's so obvious that they know exactly how to play the game, they know how to push every single one of our buttons. And that's not necessarily because their project's any more imaginative or creative or new, it's just they know how to play the game. And it makes it very, very difficult for us not to fund those people. We have to argue very strongly, we do try and argue very strongly to do new people, but they do know how, and it's that lobbying power. And I think what Natalie was saying, it's really important, this kind of unified voice that everyone starts to speak with, and I know Fergal's made real ends with this in UK music and getting the music industry to speak together and not be this completely disunited kind of bunch of individuals, to actually speak together and lobby hard for all these things. And I hope, that's something that we should all try and get behind, and we all support that in whatever way we can. Language and applications, and also we do funding surgeries as well. Our applications manager is up at Manchester Jazz Festival tonight, we do our best to try and get people to explain the way through the forms and try and make it as simple as possible, and to bring more new people in. And we're constantly looking at ways of making it easier. And I really mean it when I say contact us and talk to us about ways of changing our process and changing the way you interact with us. We want to do more with people who are outside the big bears. That's why we're here. So honestly, do approach us about that, and we're constantly looking at ways of making it, jargon free. So talk to us, we're here.
Hello, my name's Raphael, Raphael Blake, currently working at Sony Music in International Promotions. I just had a quick question for the panelists. You guys said that you need to tick boxes to, I guess, whoever funds you. Who are your funders? And if we spoke that same language, would we be able to go straight to them and apply for funding?
UK Trade and Investment is a government department. It's funded from the Treasury. The Treasury is funded through you, the taxpayer. So ultimately, there is no further for you to go really when it comes to someone like myself. Because we're answerable to a taxpayer, ultimately, each of these organisations, Arts Council, etc., have been put in place or given money by government to fulfil certain objectives. Arts Council is very much about benefiting arts for the public. For us, mine's all about making money for British businesses. It's helping British businesses make money, so it's bringing economy and keeping the economy moving. So each one of us have got specific objectives. If you look at the websites, they'll look really, really boring, really, really dull, but more often than not, one of our core goals is trying to, as near as possible to the homepages, have some very simplistic, bullet-pointed, clear objectives. And if you really look at those, they'll be pretty simple. Ours is help UK businesses achieve export. Simple as that. And if you've got a project that's going to help people do that, then it's about actually just delivering that story to us. This is how we're going to do it. And reality for most of us, ultimately our money is coming from government, taxpayer. And I sit and read the newspaper on the way home, and I think about where my management, and of course I'm being very well behaved at the moment, is making what decisions they're making about where the money's going. I've got really strong opinions, and if I think they're spending the money inappropriately, if I think that they're funding something that's completely frivolous and stupid, I get mad as well, because it's my money and it's your money, it's all of our money. I get mad when I think about Royal Opera House again. I know, and they've got 25 however many million, and I've got 120 grand. That makes me angry. We all do.
We're actually a charity, so our funding doesn't come from licence fee payers, which I think most people assume when they see BBC. They think, the 100 and whatever you pay every year goes towards us. So as a charity, though, we are answerable to the Charity Commission, which means that we have, again, certain things that the reason we are a charity. And I think our objectives say something to further the education of the public in the performing arts, which is a really woolly one, but it does mean that the trustees of the charity can decide where we spend our money. So if you go to our website and look at our trustees, you'll see there's a mixture of people like Alan Yentob, who's the creative director of the BBC, Sir Paul McCartney. There's a huge, number of different people. Do a bit of research on them and you'll find out that some of them are quite accessible. They work for organisations that you might know. So that's one way, is you can lobby them. Also, talking to me means that as the person who runs the charity, I have input into decisions that are made about where the grants go. The BBC, because there's a strong commitment to One Extra, have always tried to support, and indeed, when we do our selection, One Extra are quite heavily involved. So even if you don't get to the stage where we give you funding, it does give you a foot in the door to One Extra, which might be quite useful at some point. And I know that, for example, Laura, who's the music manager there, would say things like, well, just drop by, come by, see us, so that can be quite useful as well about building relationships. But just in terms of how we decide what grants go, I think we've shown over the last 4 years, we've given nearly £600,000 to the urban sector, and I think that shows that we're pretty committed to keep going with that. So hopefully, I won't say it'll happen straight away, but we will be doing it again.
We're also a charity. We're slightly different again in that we get, our funding comes from two places. Number one, mainly it comes from PRS for Music, which it's not just a clever name. And then the other place we get it from is partnership funding, match funding, and we work with UKTI on the British Music Abroad. And I think it's, from your original question of, can you bypass us to get to the money, not really. We are the kind of interlink between that money. You could try and go to the CEO of PRS Music and say, give us some money, but I'm not sure it really worked. He'd probably send you to us. So that's kind of how it works. I'm not saying look at that, maybe try it. That's it. But I think it's interesting about, doing research on trustees and things like that. That can be really helpful and can give you an idea of, the context behind the people who have a control over where this money eventually goes.
Farron McKenzie from Tag Strategic. I'm probably one of the guys here that are fortunate enough. Hello, you're right. One of the guys that are fortunate enough to have worked with UKTI this year. Also delivered an event for AIM, London Connected this year as well. I think the focus for everyone is everyone's talking about funding from the public sector. But I know a number of artists that have actually engaged with their fan base and made substantial revenue from their fan base. There's a number of platforms out there such as TuneCore, Nimbit, loads of them that you can actually do a D2C commerce solution and actually engage with your fans. And if you've got 1,000 friends on Facebook, if only 10% of those pay 100 quid for access for a whole year, that's a revenue in itself. Secondly, modelling your business and thinking about ways that you can actually approach brands. So if you're doing live events and there's drinks pouring in the venue that you're at, you can actually approach those brands to actually sponsor your event, because it's in their interest to get people to drink their stuff. So there's a number of other solutions that probably haven't been touched on. But I think the focus of it all is just try and understand your business, try and understand where the gaps are within your business.
I believe the British Arts Council are quite interested in exporting British culture, or at least I was told this 3 years ago. British Arts Council. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Okay. However, I was wondering, are you open to funding UK projects abroad in France, Germany, or the States?
Just to kind of get the names right, because that's where the problem is. You've got loads of different organisations with loads of different similar names. Arts Council England. Arts Council England have got lots of interesting international projects they're working with, helping. We work with them in partnership at Womex, taking world music and delivering a sort of stand there, helping promote British music at that event. They also co-fund the British Musical Board scheme for PRS for Music Foundation. But British Council is an organisation that's funded by government, again, predominantly by the Foreign Office, and it is there, and it's the primary goal, and you need to look at the website, is about kind of connecting culture internationally. So it's about promoting the UK and UK culture, but also engaging cultural relationships between the UK and other territories. They do a lot of work in developing markets and in sort of, that sort of area. They are slightly complicated in the fact that they're not necessarily a funding organisation. What they do is commission projects. So what they'll look at doing is, their goal is to promote British culture. They'll see music as a means of doing that, and so they'll come up with an idea, and then they'll look for people to work with. So there isn't a sort of the sort of way that you can actually kind of go and go, right, give me your money. There isn't a funding application process in that way. So it's a tricky one, it's a difficult one, but you really need, like we said earlier on, engagement. Find out about the people, introduce yourself to them, and then start building relationship, because then when they're looking at a project, and if they know that their project matches what you do, then they'll come to you. But they do work in a slightly more complicated way. It can be really infuriating for people when they're trying to engage with the British Council, because it doesn't always make sense to work with.
John Weir is a big dog over at British Council. What I'd say is, clue up on your politics. The British government don't fund something just to fund something. You'll notice that the British Council will start doing things every year in different areas that we're particularly unpopular in. Okay, so keep abreast of current affairs. You'll soon find that the next year, if we've done something wrong in Korea or Swaziland, all of a sudden they'll be looking at stuff to go on in there. So see if your project links in with that. Cozy up with them. They're laughing because it works, okay? It's deeply political, so really good question.
From the Arts Council perspective, we do fund internationalism, but essentially we support activities that benefit the UK taxpayer. But if you have an element of your work that is international, case in point, Jump Off. We funded, or we contributed to Jump Off to do a series of showcases, competitions, and an element of that was taking the winners over to New York to be showcased as well. So keep that in mind.
My name is Lawrence Larty. Sits and button, I don't know. That Royal Opera House statistic is shocking. How much? 25 million. Whatever it is. It's not a good representation, and I believe that arts should be accessible for everyone. So one thing I would encourage you to do is when you're applying is think outside the box. I know everyone's probably a rapper producer in here, but don't ask for money for a new Mac so you can just sit in your bedroom and make beats. The arts is more accessible than that. Like what Johnson's doing, think about theatre, think about international things, and all that money which goes to the Opera House, look at the model, look at the things they're doing, and just flip it into something urban. Yeah, so really think about what you're applying for and how it's going to benefit people. The other thing I'd say is, again, speak to Victor. Sorry to put on the spot, but because of that statistic he gave me, I was shocked, and I actually went in, sat down with him, and looked at where the money was going and projects which could be done to sort of take some of that money away from the opera and put it into this room. So really think about, plan what you're going to do, prepare, and then implement it. Thank you.
Done a great job, Carleen and Ara, because you've got, this is not what you hear from normal fund assessors or managers. You do not hear this. You are not allowed to call them. You are not allowed to email them. You are not, they have to keep themselves impartial. So it might not feel like it, but you guys really lucked out, and I really hope that you take some of this and get in touch with them and think about applying for something, or just keep that communication going, because every one of you that gets in touch with them makes my job lobbying a little bit easier, because I'm not just out there, do you know what I mean? And it would, it's going to happen. If in numbers, and if we're all together and supportive, it's going to happen regardless of the climate.
And events like this are just so important. A big hand to you guys for organising it. It's so important.